entertainment lawyer. I specialize working with celebrities, advertising, social media platforms, and so on. A little bit of background about this session. This was originally planned to be a masterclass in terms of legal advice on what to do when you're on your journeys of influencer advertising. But I changed that. I thought it'll just be boring. Uh, you know, best to maybe learn from the best in the industry, people who are through their journeys, people who are successful in this space. Everything that I have to offer in terms of advice, what we did is we created a booklet. So everything on advertising laws, everything that you need to care about from a regulation perspective if you're an influencer or working towards becoming an influencer is in a booklet. It will be distributed in a couple of minutes. It also has, in fact, 2 sample contracts. So if you don't have access to lawyers, if you don't know who to reach out to, you can just refer to that, right? So everything that I have to offer is sort of there in the booklet. Please grab those. There's also a QR code. You could scan the booklet from there. But what we're doing today in the next 45 minutes is really learn from people on the panel, and they're really best in the industry. Just to start with introductions, I have Saheli next to me. She's a director with Advertising Standards Council of India. ASCI, as it's called for short, it's a self-regulatory body, very, very recognized and respected in the advertising space. They're the first ones who came up with some guidelines and some framework for influencers to follow on social media platforms. Saheli is very senior, also a close friend. We have Shebani, of course. Shebani is she wears multiple hats. I think she's an actor, she's a celebrity, she's also a very successful influencer. She's a singer. She has many, many successful brand engagements as well. We have Mayank next to that. Mayank is an entertainment journalist, one of the top film critiques in India. And from that perspective, I think he's been an influencer perhaps all his life. From traditional mediums, he was perhaps the influencer when social media did not even exist. So he looks at the entertainment industry in this space very closely. And then we have Vinay. Vinay is the Chief Business Officer of Pocket Aces. He also leads an influencer management company called Cloud. I've known Vinay for many, many years. He's perhaps one of the first people in India to start influencer management business. He manages many, many social media influencers today. Some of them are really successful. So with that, we'll start off. Thank you, first of all of you, to be here today. Let me start with Shebani, perhaps. We're talking of influencer space. So many people, the whole creative industry, so many creators today have found their voices on these platforms, and so many of them are working towards it to be more known, to have a successful sort of page or a platform. You've been on this journey for many years, of course. So just, generally to start off with, if you could talk about a little bit about your own journey from where it started. And, today, what are perhaps some of the biggest challenges that you face that people could learn from, especially people who are starting off?
Okay. Thank you so much for having us here, and welcome to everyone who has joined us today. I see some familiar faces in the audience. It's obviously been a long, long journey. Social media has been around for a while, and I think through the journey, for those of us who jumped on right in the beginning stages, it's been about understanding how to evolve through the process as the platforms have evolved themselves. And I think that with age, as we are also getting older, as the game of social media is also progressing, it's about understanding where you kind of fit in and what is working for you. You know, it looks very different to what it did when I first started, and the kind of things that I was posting when I first started are very different to the kind of things that I'm posting now, because I'm also different. And I think the idea is to not get so caught up in maybe, I mean, there is a certain level of keeping up with what is happening, but there's also that intrinsic, you know, instinct to kind of play the game and do what is needed can kind of make you lose your way in a sense. And I think it's important to hold on to that authenticity and find what really works for you. Look, at the end of the day, with a social media page, with your handle, nobody else can do what you are doing, right? It's important when you're creating content and when you're doing what you're doing that nobody can take what you're doing and just put their name on it and put it out. So anything that I put out has to be very authentic for me. What you would put out would be very authentic to you. And I think that while there's a lot of trends and things happening, say on Instagram, for example, how do you bring authenticity to that particular trend? There was a reel that I did recently with Farhan that, you know, everybody's been doing. And I think the reason why it worked and went so viral was because you hold on to who you are. You don't try to be somebody else. And I think for me, that has been the key. I think it's really about holding on to who you are and letting people see that side of you. That's what they're going to be drawn to at the end of the day. That's how you will be drawn to the people that you choose to follow and the people that you choose to watch. Because you'll find something that you resonate with. You'll find something that you like. You'll find something interesting about that person that either makes you laugh, makes you learn, makes you want to watch. And if you can hold on to that instead of kind of having this, you know, kind of copycat system, then I think that's the greatest place to start. Find what is authentic in you and find what is something special in you that people will want to see and hold on to that.
Great. And when you're just taking from what Shibani is saying, you know, you of course, you know, manage and coach and train so many influencers. And what Shibani is saying is, you know, you've got to find your own voice and, you know, what you resonate with. And because perhaps people who resonate with you are going to resonate with your content, right? But the challenge also is that there are so many platforms today, right? There's YouTube, there's Instagram, there's, you know, multiple other platforms and so many people out there. And you've got to, you know, let's say, keep your content authentic. So how do you sort of, you know, save yourself from getting lost? What is the strategy there? Which platform to choose? You know, and how do you sort of measure what's working best?
I think I'll first try and answer the easier questions in that. There was a question about how to save yourself from getting lost. I think we'll try and see at the back end of this if we can answer that. I think that every platform exists for a reason, right? At scale. Now, there might be some platforms that come out, will mimic what already exists, and you know, they'll fade away quickly. But anything that's built scale and now has critical mass exists for a reason. So very, very quickly, like YouTube's kind of the alternative to television, to long form, to horizontal. Even when they're doing short form on YouTube Shorts, the major difference between that and what Instagram does is Instagram is what's happening right now, right? You'll see if you upload reels, 90% of your views will come in the first week. On YouTube Shorts, you might see some video that you uploaded a year ago suddenly pick up traction now because the algorithm's kind of playing on, you know, archival old content. So every platform operates for a reason. Use that platform for that reason. So for example, now we're at this event. If you're going to put up a YouTube short saying, hey, I'm at this event, it's not going to do well, right? But if you put an Instagram story, that's what the last 24 hours updates are for. So make sure that you look at each of the platforms and make content that's specific to them. The second and most important thing is the platform will kind of tell you what's going to not work. So they might not tell you what will work, but they'll clearly tell you what will not work. So for example, if you're in the habit of, I'm going to make a YouTube video, I'm just going to cut it in some shape or form, put it up on Instagram and then put a link out for watching it on YouTube, it's not going to work. Even when you're uploading, if you don't use native, text, if you don't use native features of that platform in every, feature of the product that you do, it's not going to work. So these are, it's kind of like, I hope that just like this, we should come up with a 101 on, the art, the science of this, but on the other aspects, I think that doom scrolling is a real thing. I think everyone's going through that, both as creators and as the audience. It's because it's so, engaging. One of the most important things when as a creator that you need to figure out over the long run is no matter what you do as trends and what you do for trying to gain subscribers in the short term, you have to remain authentic, as Shivani was saying, which is very, very carefully find out what is special about you, what is special about your voice, and then turn that up to 100. So as long as you can do that, everyone else can ape your content, they can, do the same trend, but it'll never be what you do, which is why we've seen longevity in that as well, right? Like there are creators that have, passed the 10-year test now. So,
Fantastic. And Mayank, I'll get to you now. And taking again from what Shibani and Vinay are saying, that you've got to be true to your voice, right? And if you look at it, and someone who's looked at the entertainment industry so closely, you've looked at different sort of creators, musicians, actors, and so on. How has social media sort of changed, let's say, the celebrity culture, so to say, right? Culture, right? So, I mean, traditionally there were stars in movies who were celebrities, right? And they had larger voices. They continue to have larger voices and stronger voices, stronger influence perhaps. But there are also just so many people out there on these social media platforms who are doing equally well, getting engaged by brands as well. So, do you see that shift happening, or do you think that, the star power is sort of still star power?
No, so one has to define what a celebrity is, right? And my rudimentary understanding of celebrity is someone you watch on screen. You could be the world's best Kho player, but if no one's watched Kho on TV, you're not a celebrity yet. You could be an average cricketer, but if you play for an IPL team, even if you've come down to bat at number 5, but if I've seen you on screen, you're a celebrity. Now, until I would think 2010s, there was television, cable network, so anyone who's coming on TV, therefore, as a result of the screen, becomes a celebrity. Yeah. Television screen, network television screen, and of course, before that, there used to only be one screen, which is the cinema screen. That is the first and the everlasting screen ever since invention, right? Yeah. I think that explosion in the 2010 onwards of social media, where literally everyone, all of us can be a screen, led to one, democratization. Anyone can be a celebrity as well, therefore. But more so, I think it destroyed and completely annihilated the monoculture, where everyone just watching one thing. As it was with cinema, then it became with what was television in terms of state broadcaster, Doordarshan, and thereafter, of course, cable television. And then suddenly you have everyone, and YouTube, as you rightly put it, is the new TV, right? There's no question about it, right? People are watching TV on YouTube, and and even with because we're obsessed with the screen, even with what became the podcast scene, right? It's incredible. I was reading this beautiful article on Vanity Fair about how video killed the radio star, right? Video killed the radio star, and then that radio star became a podcaster that's now come on video. So we've just taken a full circle. So what happens where everyone could be watching anything is everyone is becoming a celebrity in their own right, in their own spheres. There isn't that idea of the star, where that one star comes, although I think there is a primacy to cinema that has not gone yet. And I think it will never go. But that's just my belief. It's not based on anything real. Maybe I'm a movie buff, so I think cinema as a culture will always stay, as an outdoor culture will always stay, but we don't know that. So what happens then is, we don't know where to look. I could be walking. I interviewed this person who I write about tomorrow for day after. I mean, for Wednesday, my column. This person called Mayo Japan. Okay, I'd never heard of Mayo Japan until I met her. And of course, on my way to meet her, I'd seen all of her videos. She is a Hindi-speaking Japanese person from Osaka University who just literally she could walk in the streets of small-town India and she will be absolutely mobbed because she has fallen in crores. And all she's doing is taking Japanese culture to Indian audiences and taking Indian culture to Japanese audiences in her page. And there are many like her, like the India Drew, the American guy who speaks in a Bihari accent. Right? Now, he would be mobbed in most places. But good chances are nobody here has heard of them.
Yeah.
You may not have heard of somebody called Dan Bilzerian, but this dude, all he does is parties for a living. And there's some Justin Mark who's a Desi dude who does the same thing. Good chances are if he walks in, one section will just go towards him, but the others will say, who is he? So that whole thing about who is he to lots of people, but oh my God, that guy's here, is happening in a way that has never happened before. And I think that's redefined celebrity culture in ways that we will never understand. My fear is that sometimes you just become famous for being famous and then you become irrelevant way too fast, which is not how the star culture used to be. The staying power, how long you remain relevant was very important. So that is the other side of it, which I think we will discuss in the course of this
Sure. No,
conversation.
I couldn't agree with you more. And in fact, just day before, I saw a panel sort of fireside chat here as well, and there were two YouTubers. I had never really seen them, and I do, active user of YouTube, let's say. One of them had come from abroad. He had 1.5 billion following on YouTube.
Billion. Wow.
Yes.
That's crazy. That's more than India's population.
Yes, and what he does is, he was an ex-NASA person. He had done 10 years in NASA, and then he quit that, and then he started his channel, and it's just science for, kids sort of thing. He explains really basic science concepts on his channel. He had 1.5 billion following. It's amazing. Right. Sahili, to bring you in this context, right? The celebrities, influencers. You're a regulator, or you represent a regulator. Self-regulator. Right? So you're the one who's, sort of guiding people in terms of, okay, do this, but don't do that. This is great and this is not so great, right? So just from, let's say learning perspective, what are really the basic do's and don'ts if one were to start off in on your social media or your influencer journey, and possibly also people who are already there, right? And may not necessarily know what is the sort of key factors in terms of framework to follow.
So firstly, because you said we are in the space of, telling people do this, don't do that. So we strongly believe that we are not in the policing space. What we tend to do is we tell you these are the guardrails. It's almost like in any game when you go out there, if it's a game of tennis, you have your playing court. That this is the court, play within the boundary lines and play your game better. Because if your ball goes out, it's a miss for you. So essentially, that's what ASCII does. And I mean, just before I start to, just in addition to what Mayank just mentioned, because the definition of the screen has changed. We at ASCII had to change the definition of celebrities as well. So earlier for us, celebrities were the big movie stars that you would see on screen. But today, as we stand, we had to change the definition of what we see as celebrities as well. Coming to people who are starting out in the influencing space, or for those who are already there. When you choose your brand partnerships, this is something, again, Shibani has spoken about, Vinay has spoken about, authenticity. Be authentic and also draw your own boundaries, and especially when you're starting out, there's this feeling of, okay, I need to increase my follower base. There's some easy something coming in, let me take it up. But it's very important to have your own niche, that this is something I will do. And this is something I will not do. And why I say this is, because there's always this lure of, okay, popularity, stardom, becoming a celebrity, easy money coming in. say, because we are in the self-regulatory space, we look at a lot of ads, says like certain sectors which are not legal, for instance, and you would not know. So be a little wary of those. Do your own due diligence in terms of any brand collaborations you're taking up. What is the credibility of the brand? You know, do some research at your end. The product that you're taking and talking about, if there are claims being made, okay, is the product, a credible product? Because I'm going to talk about these products. Because remember, what you say has great influence on the consumers, on your audience. And you want to be authentic, transparent, and responsible towards them. And it's not just towards them, it's also your responsibility towards yourself. Ultimately, you are building your own brand. So while you're working with a brand in any brand communication or a partnership, you are also in the process building your own brand, because your audience is also going to identify with you as person X does this, and that is why I follow this person. This person is true to what he or she is doing, and that is why I believe. In fact, you know, a couple of years back, we'd done a study, it was a dipstick study on consumers. Around 850 consumers across the country were studied. And the study kind of showed us that today, consumers believe influencers more than celebrities in advertising. 70%, because the general tendency is celebrities, they've been paid for it, you know, they've been told they don't know actually what's going on in the product. I relate to this person's other content. I find this person to be real. So their faith in you is much higher, is much more. So therefore, you know, like we say, like, you know, with great power comes great responsibility. So with great creative power and great power of creating good content comes great responsibility. So just keep that in mind and go ahead.
Great. Well said, Sahili. And, you know, talking of personal brands and brands, Vinay, I'll bring you in the conversation. And again, from the perspective of managing influencers, right? How does, let's say, a young influencer versus a successful influencer choose between brand partnerships, right? And then there's this other point that, you know, Sahili very interestingly mentioned right now, that there is engagement with brands, but there is also your own personal brand, right? So both of that is happening together.
Yeah, I think there are two, three. See, everything's ever changing, right? So there's one major definition change that I think that even when we as regulators are putting out things, aren't completely aware of or understand, which I think that, you know, that education needs to happen fast. For example, I think right now every policy that goes out, an Instagram ad encompasses an ad put out by a brand that's paid marketing as well as branded content. They're not the same thing, right? They are two very different things that need to be regulated in different ways. To give you an example, even TV had this issue. So if Amphi puts out an ad, right, they're mandated to say mutual funds are subjected to market, that whole, you know, disclaimer at the end.
Yeah.
But if it says Amphi presents FIFA World Cup, you don't have to say it, right? Because you're not describing the product in that way. You're only using someone's distribution to leverage your brand, right? Which is what branded content falls into in most cases, right? So I think that regulatory, like whether it should have a collab tag and all that, that's basic. That should be true. But when it comes to this secondary responsibility, I think that, you know, you have to draw the lines and figure out some levels. Like last time, I know the whole Patanjali case, which became a huge problem. I think there are categories where we need to be extra responsible. But then there are categories where, you know, I would not say with great power comes great responsibility in this situation. I think with great money comes great responsibility. So if you're a large creator, right, then be more careful about these things. If you're a small creator, you can't, I mean, a lot of them are 18, 19-year-old kids, you know, doing their first brand deal. You want to go after them on it.
Power, right?
Yes and no. Like, you know, in some of these cases, the platforms control most of the power. So I'll tell you one major change that has happened with the brand language scenario, right? Between when people are trying to build their online presence. For the first 5 to 7 years of each platform, I think they were optimizing for subscriber base. So if you did not have a large subscriber base, then your sampling would be low. And because of that, your views would be low, right? I think over the last 5 years, it's completely irrelevant in a lot of ways. So you will see people with 1,000 followers having one reel that did 10 million views because a lot of people saw it. That was not possible 5-6 years ago. Now, even smaller accounts get large reach if they get a lot of traction. That means the algo is showing it to people, right, that are not followers. Even today, I know that you have a large follower base. If you go to your analytics, I'm sure the non-follower, viewership for you is probably 60-70%. So that's a huge amount of change that the algo is operating out of. I think it's really, really important to, build your brand in the right way. When you're up and coming and you're young, you are going to go after like brands that are willing to sponsor you. First and foremost, it's a big moment. It's like their first paycheck for a lot of people, right? That, hey, some brand thinks that my audience and my community is worth being marketed to. I want to talk about it. So they're going to get it wrong the first few times in that lens. I think that, yes, medical advice, of course, gambling as a category should not be allowed.
Yeah.
It isn't allowed, but there are some of those where we need to be like stricter on. But if someone's promoting a T-shirt and, at a small user base, like, do you really want to go after them for saying that, hey, this quality is great?
And Shivani, you of course, like Vinay said, you have a large following already. And, Vinay, of course, is saying that with great money or larger money comes more responsibility. I would although think that, yes, money is one part of it, but then if you already have a large following, right? And that is really your potential. Those are the minimum number of people that you're going to influence in some sense, right? So should perhaps that be the metric? One is that, and the other is, how do you sort of go about choosing brands that you engage with? Is it a brand that you resonate with? Is it good for public, or you're good for messaging in terms of people who follow you?
So it's a very tricky one, actually, because my manager is sitting in the audience and laughing because she knows how difficult this can be. I think, once you get to a certain level, look, Instagram is a source of revenue. We're making money. But it's also important to understand how the brands that you are working with factor into this whole sense of authenticity, the sense of self, making money for the right reasons. Right now, do you want your Instagram page to look like one big commercial? Should it reflect you in any way? It's not a straight up advertisement anymore. When you are creating content that is brand related for your page, it's a collaboration. So you need to be able to see yourself when you are creating these ads. There have been many times where we've been offered campaigns and we've said no. There have been many times where we've been offered campaigns and we've said, but we want to do it like this. Because I think brands also have a large responsibility in understanding that if you are going to someone to create content, you have to understand why you are going to that person. You have to understand what works on their page and what you can do together that will maximize the reach that both of you eventually want. If the page is used to just create an ad that you could maybe see on TV, then there's no point. So if you don't get involved in every detail, from what you're wearing to what you're saying to how you're presenting yourself, how you're presenting the brand, then it's a pointless exercise for both you and the brand. So there has to be a level of involvement. And sometimes you can get caught up in the, listen, this is really easy. It'll take me 2 hours to shoot. Just wear what they want you to wear, hold up the product, say what you want them to say, post it and be done with it, collect your check. It doesn't work like that. You need people to understand that you believe in what it is that you are selling. Whether you are getting paid or not, you have to believe in what it is that you're doing, because ultimately, this platform is yours. This page is yours. And it all comes down to authenticity. So if I'm promoting a jewelry brand or a food, brand, whatever it is, I need to believe that what I am doing is going to work. And I think that is always the key. As we've discussed before, there is this temptation to just say yes for the money. And yes, when you're starting off, you might just say yes to things because you want to build on that brand, and that makes sense. As you rightfully said, given certain limitations, depending on whether it's medical or whether it's a product that discriminates, let's say, skin color or things like that, you don't want to go in that direction, especially when you're starting off, and more so when you've reached a certain level. There are brands that we will say no to if you are discriminating on people in general. And you have to know what works for you and what is right. And a lot of the times, as I said, that regulation will need to happen from you because you are also the brand. See, when brands look at you, they say, look, what is your perfect time for posting? Is it 3 p.m.? Is it 6 p.m.? It goes beyond that. What works for you? So if a brand says to me, listen, what works for you on your page? What do you get eyeballs for? What do people like? If they've done their research before they approach you, great. If not, to have that conversation of what do you think? You know, if I'm a jewelry brand and I'm approaching you and I want to do something with you, what do you think will work on your page? What can we do together? And I think that is an important conversation because otherwise you can just go to 10 people, have them do the same campaign, have them post the same thing and be done with it. Authenticity is king. You have to know what works for you and accordingly do collaborations that you know will work for the brand as well as yourself.
Right. And Mayank, from your perspective, right, in some sense, let's say the other side of it, which is the audience, right, people who are following accounts, following celebrity stars, influencers, and so on. Do you feel like the general trust has shifted or gotten divided between who's talking, right? And both Vinay and Shibani are talking about authenticity, but and I think Saheli will talk about how collabs should be sort of disclosed. There are hashtag collaborations and so on. But do you think all of that makes a difference from an audience perspective?
Well, to get back to the responsibility part, I think Spider-Man would agree with great power comes great possibilities. You know, there are lots of things you can do in life if you have power already. And the possibilities change from person to person. And, you know, I was kind of surprised first to hear the point about 70% of consumers trusting social media celebrities more than mainstream celebrities. But now when I thought about it, there was enough time for me to think about it. It makes complete sense, right? Because it just feels more authentic. The person who's just walking around saying something as against, you know, this really well-made ad with this particular advertising agency. I'm like, hey, man, you are paid for this. This might be actually true, whether or not you reveal
Which goes back to the point that I'm saying, which is that's why it has to happen here as well. So that people understand that there's a level of authenticity and it's not just a paycheck.
Exactly. Creators actually use their Oppo phones. Like, you know, I don't...
But creators also are testing out products and giving you honest feedback about what they like and what they don't like. And so a lot of the time, sorry, I've just completely cut you off.
Please.
But a lot of the time when someone says, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this, I like this, you're thinking, oh, they've not liked 3 things and they've been really honest about them. The thing that they like, they're being honest about as well. Right. So there's a difference.
So in that sense, I agree. But what a survey like that does not reveal is those 70% find which content credible, right? And I am a bit of a skeptic on social media at a larger level, not necessarily individual level, right? And just because someone has followers does not mean they're leaders. I could be following someone for completely random reason. It could just be, if I'm on Instagram, it could just be because that's a great thirst trap. If I'm on Twitter, it could just be because they only write polarizing stuff. I don't mean me, I mean everyone, right? So now, are you then considering that person a leader, therefore a celebrity, and therefore endorser of your product? I don't know. Just because I follow this person doesn't mean I buy the product that they're putting out there for me to I may not, for that reason, I may not ever use that product. Just because I follow them because they write rabid stuff. Now, if you're going to associate with this person, I'm definitely not going to buy it. But would I continue to follow them? Yeah, because it's random, right? The second part here is, and I think that's something that I've been a journalist for pretty much my entire professional life. And we've been taught to be credible all the time. Like my favorite journalist, Vinod Mehta, said this famously, that credibility is like virginity. You lose it only once. And once you've lost that credibility, you're screwed. Now, that is something that you need to build over time, right? So if I am a movie critic by profession, and if I've said something to you about a film, you've gone and seen that movie and said it's rubbish, you will stop trusting me from here on. So that is obvious. I think you will need to be consistent about what you say, because that lie can be found out immediately, because it's in the proof of concept is in the using of it anyway. So, so in that sense, I think consistency what would make a difference. I don't care how many followers you have, but if you're consistent about something, I will actually trust you. And trust is always built over time, right? You do it once, I will never go back to you.
Yeah, but the good part is, I think brands have gotten smarter about this. So if you're an account built on thirst traps, like you're not going to get
I don't know.
most brand categories interested, because they understand that the purchase intent of the user out of this profile is very low.
I do see a lot of random ads by people who I just follow for completely random
Yeah,
reasons.
but they'll be
but
paid.
then that can be said for advertising itself. Like,
Yeah,
that
I
famous
was
line
just
about how
going to say that.
50% of what you spend in advertising is a waste. We just don't know which 50%.
Yeah.
Right? So there is a lot of leakage out there. But I think over time, through consistency and credibility built over years, I think that gets sorted out eventually.
And
I think,
there's
sorry,
another
I think that
side-
there's also, you've also got a large number of people now, creators, who are using products and testing out items for you. So you're not just seeing it as an ad, but they're showing you how to use it, how it works, does it work, is it effective? And so with this test almost, it's not just this beautiful ad wrapped up in a bow, but it's someone showing you what it actually means. And I think because of that, you're more inclined to kind of listen to what creators are saying. I mean, I've purchased so many products based on things that I've just kind of swiped up in Reels and I've seen creators using, and I have gone straight to order them. And so it's a different method of advertising, which is now a lot more like you feel like you're closer to it.
Yeah, and just to add to what Shibani just said, Mayank, because you're a skeptic, I'll just feed a little more there. Even in that could be scripted as well, that I use the product while I'm shooting the product. But having said that, we have heard back a lot from influencers that 10 products shared, we've only talked about one because the other 9 did not work for me. And I think it is that part which resonates with the audience, because the audience somewhere, I mean, while 70% said they would trust an influencer more than a celebrity on TV screen, some good 40% also said they have made purchases based on celebrity influencer advertising. And it is because of that I'm using the product over a period of time. I'm showing the difference in terms of what's happening. So that's why the level and the reality and this is relatable. This is actually happening versus whitewashed production, full-on production that go on in a TV ad. So I think that's where the connect is slightly higher.
But I think the angle of the celebrity promoting the product in a larger sense is also what gets the eyeballs,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So for creators to even use these products and promote them themselves and test them out, there has to be always, I mean, I'm sure that there's always a larger campaign that kind of leads to the trickling down.
Even now, I think there's nothing as effective for mass reach as a
As
television
celebrity,
campaign
yes,
with a large
absolutely.
celebrity.
And having a big
So,
celebrity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's also that other side to it, right? While we're talking about influencers and how many followings do they have or they don't have, there are also brands who are young and successful, right? And they're on their own journey of who to engage, who do not engage, and who's the right fit for them, and so on. Sahili, I'll bring you in on it. You're right. I think you all were the first ones who came up in India in terms of sponsored ads or sponsored content being disclosed as such. But you feel that's enough, right? From all that we've spoken about today in terms of authenticity, reach, looking at the platform and algos and knowing about what the features are, what is the audience demographic across platforms and so on. From a compliance, from engagement, from these different parameters, do you think just the disclosure, hashtag sponsored, so on works, and is it enough?
So, see, it's enough from the point of view of transparency. But is transparency the only thing when it comes to responsible influencer marketing? I would say no. And like, when I also mentioned, it's kind of, okay, basic, it's given. Now the platforms also give you platform disclosure. So every platform that you go on to, they have a platform disclosure label. So you disclose with whatever the permitted labels are, or you just use the platform's disclosure label. It's only your connect with your audience to let your audience know I'm being transparent, that I've been paid for this. Whatever I'm saying about this brand, I've been paid for this. There are a couple of other things to it, so which is very, very important when it comes to what you're saying, etc. From a compliance point of view, one is to know that it's not just about the ASCII code and the guidelines in advertising, which is self-regulatory. There are several regulatory guidelines that talk about misleading a consumer. So a lot of things that you say, a lot of things that you show in your content should not be misleading in a way that because your consumers' purchase decision or perception about a product or a brand will depend on what you're saying. So you should not be misleading. So to know and be aware of what the guidelines are, whether it's put out by somebody like an Advertising Standards Council of India or the government, then there is also, so I would say, transparency is very important. Authenticity, again, is very, very important. So you're being authentic to whatever you are saying, not just the authentic content that you're putting out, but you're doing your due diligence, you're being honest and truthful in what you're saying. Responsibility in terms of not showing anything which is derogatory, which is offensive, because again, the regulatory guidelines and even platform guidelines, there are community guidelines for every platform. You would have to be aware of all these things. The other thing is, tailoring your content. Who is it that you are talking to? Keep that in mind. What is the product you're taking out in the market and who is it that you're talking to? And then finally, just keep all these check boxes in mind, tick all of them, and you will, end of the day, become compliant. ASCII has courses for influencers, which is called the influencer certification, where we kind of tell you and help you understand what the codes and the guidelines are to keep you on the right side of the regulation. That's something that we do to help the industry. We also have something called the endorser due diligence service, that, if something, then, if a big brand comes to you and tells you that, I am telling you, say these things about my product, you can run it past. If you don't have the wherewithal, you can run it past ASCII to check if if these claims are verifiable or not.
Great. I've got two reminders to wrap up the session. So, but maybe we'll just do one wrap-up session for question for everyone. Vinay, for you, how do you see, there's so many things happening there. There are trends and there are new songs and, there are new brands and new everything. And, every 2 days I feel like my feed sort of completely changes.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it.
Right? Yeah. So, from a macro perspective, how do you see the landscape sort of changing in the next 2 to 5 years, and what should people be geared towards?
Yeah, I think that for the longest, entertainment was boxed, right? Every other entertainment product, radio, television, programming was made so that people consumed ads. It's not the other way around, right? If you should go see the origins of those medium. Now, this is the first one where we are trying to figure out advertising in content formats. I think that the next set of content formats are not invented yet. And they will keep coming and it will transform what, for example, now people love to listen to meditation advice or nutrition advice. We spoke about this, that one of the biggest creators in the US is this woman called Erica, who just looks at legal fine print and tells you, hey, your Nike shoes, you have like a 10-year warranty. You can go and exchange them if the sole wears out. Yeah. So that kind of content is going to come through. I think that everything will have to have either entertainment value or like some kind of transcendent knowledge value. If one of these two things applies, then those creators are going to kind of dominate what we do next. So.
Got it. And Shibani, one sort of piece of advice, and I know you've spoken about authenticity and brand engagements and so on, but again, from shifting trends, shifting landscape, right? Just one thing you feel that somebody who's starting off or somebody who's in the space maybe, should watch out for?
I mean, it all comes back to the same thing. If there are 5 trends out right now and you're going to do every single one of them, I'm not really kind of seeing, I guess, who you are. I always find things that work for me and kind of show my personality, and, you know, people get a sense of what you're about. I mean, I get social media packages sent for my 4 dogs with their names on it. And it makes me think that people are watching my page and understanding that I'm a dog lover, and I have, you know, and they're literally addressed to Jimmy, Tyson, Rumi, and Gigi. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, you know, I think people are watching, people are seeing everything that's going on. So if I suddenly do a trend that just seems completely out of character for me, I don't know if it'll work for me or if it'll work for the audience. Find your sweet spot. Find what you resonate with, what you know, what you want to kind of share, how you want to connect. I think that it can be overwhelming and it can feel like a job and something that you kind of have to keep up with all the time. And there's this incessant need to just do everything all the time. But I think just build it beautifully and build it in an organic way that makes people want to watch you and have something that they can connect with you on, because there are a million other people out there, more than a million, obviously, and they'll connect with other people on other things. But what will they go to you for? That's what you have to find, you know? I mean, I look up certain people or pages when I want to see something specifically. Maybe it's makeup, maybe it's clothing. And if I'm feeling like it's not on my page at the moment, but I want to get inspiration, I'll go to that particular page because I know that that's what they're there for. And I think that's what's important.
Lovely. And Mayank, Saheli, just, you know, closing thoughts from both of you for anyone who's, and I'm, you know, saying this out, they may or may not be an influencer, may or may not be a social media celebrity, but anyone who's in the creative space and out there trying to increase their presence on screen, whichever screen it is, right? Is there some, yeah, Saheli, we can start with you.
Because from where I come, I think just one word I'm going to use, whether it's for influencers or for brands and advertisers: due diligence. Who you're going out to, who you're engaging with, and what you're putting out. Just make sure that you do your own research and find out if this is the right person who can promote my brand, who can take it to my audience, and from an influencer point of view, if this is what I really want to talk about and take to my audience.
I guess because this was a conversation on the legal framework for influencers, and it's really about what I would like to see rather than what will happen. And my issue has always been with social media, because I also work in news, are a couple of things that can be deeply harmful to my industry, right? And I don't know what steps have been taken, how hard is it to take those steps, to what extent can ASCII come in, what is the regulatory framework likely to be without it turning into a kangaroo court. But at the same time, your regular legal frameworks are not going to apply because there's just too many social media users. But here's the thing, I could buy a t-shirt or not buy a t-shirt, who cares, right? That t-shirt tore off, it didn't look like the way I saw it on the screen, too bad. But if I'm going to spread misinformation and call myself a media person, because you really are, you're no different from the newspaper I work for. I cannot publish anything without getting into serious trouble. A legal notice will come exactly the next day if I even have one piece of information wrong. That same thing needs to apply to every single person who tweets. Every single person who puts out a social media thing about, hey, you know what? This is from Peshawar jail and this is what happened to Imran Khan. Are you kidding me? Who did that? And what happens to the person who floated that in the first place? What legal framework do we have to nab that person? Because this is a serious problem here. These are people who have become media people without knowing how media functions. But you probably have more followers than my newspaper does. Then you probably have the same responsibilities that my newspaper does, right? So if we do so many checks before publishing something that will probably be read by fewer people in the world anyway, compared to this rando who put it out. Because you know that famous metaphor about how the lie travels the whole world before the truth can even wear its shoes. It's damn true, right? Yeah. So that's one. I hope something gets figured out in the future because it's essential to the society. The second is, which directly affects the news media industry, is freaking plagiarism. And it's not just plagiarism of randos. New media platforms pick up other people's stuff. They may even put they may even credit. But it took a lot of money, a lot of patience, lot of work to get that piece of information first. All you did was just picked it up. You know, Shibani made this show called Dabba Cartel. What if I run the whole show again and just say, you know what, it's the same as the last one, but you run the whole damn show again? Can you do that? But apparently in news you can. Some of the biggest news influencers, all they ever do is tell you what somebody else is reporting. Just they tell you that it's reported from there. I don't want to take names, but you know who I'm talking about. Now, if that person is going to get more views than a proper regular news platform that spent money, there's no incentive to invest. So I think plagiarism, definitely, because it's affecting a really important, function of society, which is what news media does. And second, and more importantly, fake freaking news. Somebody's got to rein that shit in.
So, closing thoughts, wrapping this up. Basically, takeaways should be stay authentic, be responsible, and don't do something which is outside of the framework. And what the framework is, and I can go on about it for an entire day, but I don't want to. So, everything that I have to say is in this booklet. Please grab your copies. There's also a QR code. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, of course. Thank you so much for being a great audience, and thank you so much to all of you.